Hi folks, back again, Bathrobe Chronicles 101 Part 2, and I just had a phone call, and it was work related for whatever that's worth. It's 3:15 in the morning. That's a story for another day. Anyway, I was talking about these battered women, and I was just talking about what I think some professionals in the field would call the honeymoon phase. And this normally happens after you might have like a really traumatic event, like the guy really beats the crap out of the woman or whatever. There's really no remorse. However, the fellow might be nice for a few minutes, then they screw and do all that other stuff. He may even bring some flowers home. He may even say, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry, oh blah 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 blah." And this honeymoon phase might be, 1 or 2% of the entire relationship. And sometimes some of these ladies feel as though that's the real person, that 1% or that 2%. And for whatever reason, they fail to realize that that's not that person and that things aren't always going to, in other words, I think somewhere they have this hope that that little 1 or 2% is really this person, and if things were just right, then it would be like that 100% of the time. I'm sorry, let me get the old watch going. Anyway, what am I leading up to here? I'm not saying it happens every day, but it happens. I'd be willing to bet you if you went around the entire country and took a snapshot of the day. No telling how many women are being murdered by these men. There was just a couple of days ago, this young lady who is a special education teacher. She's 30 years old, for crying out loud. This fellow, who she never had a relationship with, as far as a romantic relationship or anything like that with. This was a fellow who she knew in college, and they both graduated in 2003. And from the newspaper report, she never dated this guy or anything, and he basically was stalking her. That's in essence what he was doing. So this guy shows up. I think there had been, let me see. Oh, now this is in Washington State, and they have what they call up there an anti-harassment order was brought out against this fellow because of his behavior. And he had violated this protective order in September 2008, and he had been arrested at that time. But this guy waited for this young lady, this 30-year-old school teacher, and killed her, with a gun. Killed her as she was walking into school, I believe. Then he left, of course. A deputy found him, and there was a shootout, and this guy ended up being killed. There was another one here, and this was about a young man who was evidently a heck of a football player in high school. He had just gotten a full scholarship to Vanderbilt University. This estranged boyfriend of his mother's evidently came to their home. Somehow they all ended up in the bathroom trying to get away from this person. They called 911, and next thing the police come, and there are gunshots and all of this. The long and the short of it is this young fellow, this 17 or 18-year-old fellow, seemingly a great kid, he's dead, and the guy kills himself. So I guess the real question is now locally, if there's some type of harassment or whatever, locally when an order is issued, it's called a protective order. But this really doesn't do anything. It does absolutely nothing. In other words, unfortunately, I remember a few years ago there was a young lady who I didn't actually meet her, but I was aware of the situation, and she had this boyfriend, so-called, and it was a hell of a mess, and he was assaulting her and this, that, and the other, so she went to the police. She got the protective order. The next night, the guy murdered her as she walked out of a restaurant. Murdered her, and then, of course, killed himself. So you say, what can you do? And in our country, with almost no exceptions, we basically do not take people into custody or detain people for something they might do. Now, excuse me. A few segments ago, I did a chronicle, or whatever you want to call it, on states that are using the civil commitment process to incarcerate or take off the street sex offenders. In other words, these are fellows who have actually served their time in prison, but yet when they are getting ready to get released from prison, the states, and there are quite a few states doing this, say, hey, wait a minute, we know what you're going to do when you get out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take you off the street right now. And what they do is they use the civil commitment process. Now, the civil commitment process, I can't speak for all states, but I know in our state, it's used for people who are mentally ill, period. That's what it's used for. In other words, the basic criteria to actually force someone in a hospital for further evaluation, to make them go through the commitment process, is because of mental illness. They're imminently dangerous to themselves or others, or substantially unable to care for themselves. But many states now, I think there are 19 or 20 states, are using this to take so-called sexual predators off the street and incarcerate them, for lack of a better word, even though they haven't committed a crime. And I don't claim to know what the answer is for all these women being murdered by these people who have protective orders. But at a minimum, at an absolute minimum, I think when the behavior of someone rises to the occasion that a protective order can be issued, I think there needs to be something else done. I think possibly they need to be held without bond for a few days, possibly have a psychiatrist evaluate them, or whatever psychologist, whatever you want to use, and to get them off the daggone streets, because this happens routinely. The protective order does not protect anyone from anything. It truly doesn't. And we really need to rethink these laws about what we do with these folks. We really do. At a minimum, depending upon what the circumstances are, of course, these folks should be held without bond and come before a judge, and then have witnesses and so on and so forth, and maybe have an evaluation to see what the potential for the dangerousness is. It's just, our laws are not protecting the folks, and that's all there is to it. And as Pat Condell would say, peace, ladies and gentlemen, peace, and be careful out there and watch yourself.